I have seen the first 4 episodes, so
Have you? I'm glad. I just watched them the other day, yesterday
yeah,
actually.
it's a lot of fun. I'm excited to finally get to, be familiar with the characters, see what the show is all about. I I feel like I didn't know anything before I watched it, which I think is really cool.
I know it's like it's that kind of it's kind of the you read tweets and messages and things and thoughts of people in anticipation of the show coming out, and it's just kind of bizarre how wrong some of the guesses are, and I'm just kind of sitting back and waiting for everything to unravel to the public.
Well, when the opportunity to do this and to be a part of this reboot became a possibility for you, what was your reaction? Since you are somebody who had already seen and were a fan of the original series, did that make you more excited or more nervous about pursuing a role on the show?
I don't think I felt any which way about it, just because I wasn't sure they'd even give me a chance, because I was 16 at the time. And we obviously know that Gossip Girl isn't exactly the most PG-13 TV series out there. And now with it being on HBO Max, it's obviously a little bit more risque and, explicit, because it's not watered down because it's not on a network. So it's not on like a TV network. So it's going to be a little bit more elevated. So I was definitely in disbelief that they even let me audition. So, and then when I got it, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. But then I realized I was playing a 14-year-old. So there's a little bit more room to get away with that.
Because you had watched the original series after it first aired, what was it that made you originally decide to watch it? Was it just you had heard about it and thought you wanted to check it out?
Um, I definitely heard about it growing up, because I feel like maybe my sisters watched it. I don't think they ever mentioned it really, but it's just kind of been around. People would reference it, and there was like Blair memes everywhere, and I'd never been aware of it. And I was watching Pretty Little Liars at the time, but then I outgrew it, and it got a little bit dark, and it became like stressful to me to watch Pretty Little Liars, because it was kind of so like thrillery.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, I wasn't like, but I was thinking, what else can I watch that's a little mindless and relaxing and calm? And I was like, oh, let me just watch all these rich people get mad at each other. And it
Yeah.
was awesome. And it did just that. It was a perfect escape. Um, and a really great distraction. And I'm grateful for that.
How do you personally normally feel about reboots and remakes and reimaginings? Is it something that you find yourself interested in? Do you normally shy away from watching
I'm
them?
usually the first to shy away, honestly. I hate to admit it, but I am that person. So when I found out they were doing a reboot, I was first of all, what had I seen it at the? Yes, I had. I was like, what do you mean they're doing a reboot? Like, is the original cast coming back? What's going to happen with this? And then I obviously found out what the premise was, and I was like, okay, now I feel kind of silly for being so like quick to shut it down. Um, but yeah, I'm usually probably the first person to turn a blind eye to a reboot. Then you give it a chance, and then you're kind of like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't have spoken too soon.
Yeah, but then it does its job. It wins you over. That's what it should do. So,
Exactly. And most of the time it's not really a reboot. It's not really a remake. It's kind of just I mean, this one at least is a continuation, and it's just 10 years later, different world, more current.
what was your audition process like for this? When you left the audition, or the first meeting that you might have had on this, was it something that you had a good feeling about? Were you convinced you'd never get it? Are you someone who tries to not think about auditions after you do them?
Well, here's the thing. I never actually read in the room for it. I sent in a tape end of 2019, went on, like, disappeared to Uganda. My sister was getting married, so me and my family went back home and spent a lovely month there, just getting enveloped in culture and just seeing my family again for the first time in like 5 or 6 years. So it was incredible. And then I came back and got the news, and I was in disbelief, of course, but also a little bit skeptical because I hadn't done a callback. I hadn't read in the room for it. I was a little bit nervous that they wouldn't really like me once I got on set, or that something would go wrong. And then of course COVID happened, and then I was thinking, okay, well, this is done. This isn't gonna happen. Nice knowing you guys. Really great meeting you. But then cut to 7 months later, we got into it, and we're in New York, and we're working on it, and it's awesome. So it was a quick and easy process for me.
Yeah.
Thank God.
So you didn't have to be tortured over whether or not you would get it for too long.
Yes. I just had to be tortured on whether or not it was happening.
Yeah.
Which was probably almost worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm glad those days are behind me right now.
You previously said that when you booked the show, you sort of realized that acting was something you could potentially do for the rest of your life. So now that you've been doing the show, has that really confirmed that for you even more?
Absolutely. I feel like every single day on set, I enjoy it more, and with reading the scripts and stuff, I'm just now being on this show and kind of seeing how everything works, and being really involved with the behind the scenes and kind of and that stuff like that. I just crave more now. It's almost like it's like an addiction. I just want to do more. I want to push myself, and I want to challenge myself to kind of step more outside the boxes and play like far characters for myself. So I think, yeah, if anything, I've got the bug for sure.
What can you say to tease the story arc for the first season? What do you think are the biggest ways the audience of the show will be surprised by the story you're telling?
The story we're telling. This is going to come out after the first episode, right?
Yeah, we'll keep anything spoilery till after it would be spoilery.
Okay, cool. I think that the audience is really going to enjoy getting a peek into the inner workings of Gossip Girl and the trials and tribulations of being this sort of like big sister looking over the shoulder vibe of Gossip Girl. Because in the original, it was just kind of very one-dimensional, and that she was just this character that would just blog, and your stuff was, and then it kind of played with who she was and her identity and all of this stuff. But now, first episode, it's like revealed, and the audience is in on something that the characters aren't, which I think is really, really, it was such a cool way to kind of flip the script a little bit. So it kind of makes the audience feel a part of it all, and that they know something that we don't. And it's, I don't know if I was giving too much away, but I know what I am allowed to say is that there's a lot of events, there's a lot of fashion, and there's literally a fashion show in the first episode. There's a black tie gala in the second. I mean, yeah, they're in for a ride. I mean, every single episode has a beginning, middle, and end, and it is drama, drama, drama.
Because there are two female characters at the center of this story, people are going to look for comparisons to Serena and Blair, but it feels like your character is much more the Dan of the story. Is that how you see it too? At least initially?
I did see it like that initially because the script I auditioned with was very that. It was very new girl, didn't really like the elitism of the world that she was in. And so I definitely did think that. But I also feel like now with, me and Jordan's characters being half sisters, there's obviously going to be that kind of comparison. I think the audience is going to expect it to be very much me versus her, or her versus me. Whereas like, it's not like that at all, because we actually want to be sisters. Like, we want to be that family. We want to have that connection. And I think because we are still so young and have to kind of overcome these barriers in order to get there at the end of the day. I mean, me and Jordan have had endless conversations about this because we know what the initial response would be when two girls are put up together. There always has to be kind of like a who versus who, and we're very secure in the fact that Julien and Zoya and myself and Jordan are kind of aware enough of ourselves to overcome that and kind of uh yeah, be good at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, what are you enjoying about that sister dynamic? Because it seems like, these are two girls from very different worlds and they're still getting to know each other at the same time the audience is getting to know them. What are you enjoying about getting to explore that dynamic as it grows more and more?
Well, I actually have two sisters back home in Vancouver, and I miss them very, very much. But Jordan has kind of been an extension of of like a big sister to me in real life, and so that's kind of been really, really easy to tap into. Um, but sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Just what you enjoy about getting to explore that, especially as it's evolving, because even in just the first 4 episodes, their relationship dynamic keeps changing.
I mean, okay, so all my sisters are older, right? And so it's kind of, I mean, Jordan is older too, but Julien is only a few years older than Zoya. And so it's interesting going to school with your sister, but also having this kind of separation in that you didn't know each other for however long, but you're sisters. So you have to kind of, you're kind of holding on to this thing that your family and your blood, and there's got to be there's just something there, there's just a connection there, and trying to kind of explore that and see how really deep it is, or how deep it can be, and how far it can go is probably the most exciting part for me, because it's going to go up and down. I just can't wait to see where it ends up.
It's interesting too, because she is the one whose home life is very different from these other kids. Do you also enjoy getting to explore that duality in her life, to have this very different life at school that she's living and with these people that she's sort of friends with now, and then going home to a very different home life?
Yeah, I mean, she and her dad right now are staying in her grandmother's rent controlled apartment. But it's in the Upper West Side, and she's kind of living this like lower middle class life, but also on the brink of actually not having a home.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but like the place is nice, but it's not fancy. So whenever she does go to these like extreme environments, she's sure impressed by, the decorum of it all, but at the end of the day, she's not gonna, or at least I don't think so yet. She's not gonna kind of bash her home life, because she's like exposed to this kind of higher than thou lifestyle. Um, but her father's also a lawyer, and he's kind of like the moral compass of the show. Because he's very like, this is the law, you must be doing yada yada yada. But also they just have a really great relationship, but it's definitely still father and daughter. Whereas I think Julien and Davis have kind of like more of like a pal relationship.
Yeah. How does Zoya feel about Gossip Girl? Does she care about finding out who Gossip Girl is? What is that like for her to deal with?
I say this in pretty much every single interview, but Zoya is somebody who values the well-being of her friends and family and the people that she loves. So I don't think she really cares about it so much as about in terms of herself. Like if it was, other than the exception of a few traumatic events that have happened to her, if it was kind of bashing her just to, rumors or whatever, she wouldn't really care about it. But when it, gets in terms of her family and her friends, that's when she really, really would get riled up and really want to find out and get to the bottom of it. She's just really annoyed because it gets really real when it's messing with the people that she loves, because she just really wants everybody around her to be happy and to be okay.
Have you finished filming the series now?
No, we finished, I think, early September. So I think at some point in the first week of September we're done.
So you don't know then where exactly things will end up?
Exactly. I know we're filming the 9th episode right now, and that's about as much as I know. So it's just kind of we have a general idea. Josh will throw us little hints here and there of where it's going to go, but you never really get the full picture until you're filming the episode. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what is that relationship like with him as far as like how collaborative does it get? Do you give input on your character? How much do you get told about things?
I have nothing bad to say about Josh and working with him. He's always receptive to any ideas or any questions and concerns that I have. He lets me play with the character and kind of add nuances and lets me make her messy because, you know, humans aren't perfect. And especially someone as comfortable with herself as as Zoya is, she's messy. And I feel like a lot of Black characters or people of color aren't allowed to be messy on TV because it's kind of, you're either this prim and proper and with like, you know, strict upbringing, and you have to stick to the script and be perfect and go to, you know, post-secondary and graduate and do all this stuff. Or if you're even remotely like messy or, you know, just want to go out in like a messy bun or something, you're then put on this end of the spectrum where you're like too hood, or you're no, I'm so serious. Like this is it's the tropes, you know. You can't just
or
be
you're the
like
background character and there just isn't enough time to even explore your storyline.
Exactly. And you don't get an arc. Yeah. It's really frustrating to see that in the industry. And of course I very much recognize my privilege and, you know, in being a person of color, but also a mixed person of color. I'm trying to be very much aware of that while also making it acceptable for people of color to be messy on TV, because it's real. I mean, you know, we don't have our hair snatched all the time, and we have bad hair days, you know what I'm saying? And we are allowed to be messy and go out in sweatpants and a messy bun and like not be ratchet, you know? So I think it's really, really awesome that he lets us play with that and, you know, go to sleep in do-rags and sleep in headscarves and bonnets or whatever we need to. So we're gonna try to keep pushing further and pushing that line further. But he's the entire crew so far has been incredible to work with. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, and I feel like teenagers are especially messy. So
exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely appropriate. Well, you mentioned the fashion, and fashion was a huge part of the original series, and it seems like it's also a defining characteristic of this series. How do you feel about her specific wardrobe, from how she styles her school uniform to what she wears in everyday life to when she dresses up? Do you feel like there is one way to describe her style, or is it more of a mix of things?
I think she expresses herself mostly through, or I think she sees herself mostly in artwork. So she sees herself in books and plays and music and, you know, paintings or art. You know, she doesn't so much express herself in her clothing. She just kind of goes for whatever's comfortable, which I'm learning as I continue. Because at first I was thinking, oh, she's cool, she just wears street clothes, she's very into style, yada yada yada. But the more and more I learn about her, I think she's just she connects more with arts than she does with outer expression. She just kind of wears whatever is comfortable and whatever she feels good on her that day.
I like even just what she does with her school uniform, because she definitely seems like she makes it much more comfortable than some of the other people.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. She's not really looking to impress anybody. She just wants to feel good.
Pretty early on, there's also some tension between these sisters over a guy. So when it comes to, I mean, they're teenagers. So
can you blame him? You're gonna put him between these two fly people and just not expect him to, you know, have some self-doubt. Come on. He's a teenager.
Yeah. When it comes to your character and Obi, how do you feel about the relationship? Is it a situation like, do you worry that she shouldn't even be looking in that direction, or is it fair game because, you know, her sister and him have become so different?
I think that's a very, very tough question to answer. It's obviously very, very subjective, but when you're young, listen to me preaching I've lived a life. I'm literally 18. But I feel like things definitely feel more heightened when you're young. And so this is kind of her first, real intimate interaction with somebody who happens to have fallen for her sister also. So it's probably a little bit uncomfortable, but also you'll see as the episodes go on that there's this kind of mutual awareness of how over it is, And from Obi's perspective, it was a little bit weird because in my head, I was thinking, wow, he just sees something shiny and just, goes after it, just anything, because he's so guilty of his kind of privilege and his wealth and all of this. And I think it was a little bit like, in my head, I was thinking, of course, sees one, somebody who's abnormal, not a part of his world, and just needs to just, no matter how real and how authentic it felt to him, I think it's just a barrier that he needed for himself in order to grow. He just needed to kind of do that and like try to get and learn from it, and then continues on. But yeah, I definitely felt a little bit weird about dating my best friend's my sister's brother or my sister's boyfriend. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But it happens in real life, and Julien was pretty chill about it because I think she was very well aware that she was a little bit controlling, and that the chemistry between them had kind of dispersed.
Yeah, I mean, we learn pretty quickly that they are very different, and that
the
character has much more in common with him.
Mm-hmm. But I think because that happens, it helps Julien find herself, and even though it's to the detriment of Zoya, I think it needed to happen in order for Julien to grow, and in order for them to grow as a couple together, if they ever get back together. I don't know.
I really like how this series is tackling issues. I mean, we see the way that bullying is handled. There's different issues that are obviously taken on in the show. Do you like how the show is handling that side of things, and the issues that you are able to tackle with a show like this?
I think in the beginning, I was a little bit frustrated at how quickly some of them were skimmed over. But when you're making a 45-minute TV show with a beginning, middle, and end with following different storylines, you're not going to really get to the nit and gritty of every single issue, right? And so while I think we do cover a lot of issues, I mean, you could go on, you know what I'm saying? We can make an entire season about bullying and high school drama and all of this stuff, but there's just so much going on all the time, which I feel like would take away from, not take away, but I understand it. And so I appreciate that we're even touching on issues at all, period. You just got to take it for what it is, and read them between the lines. Yeah. I think that's what you can always going to do a little bit. Yeah.
You can always come back to it in future seasons because, obviously.
Exactly. I mean, also like Gossip Girl is all about the drama and all of it, right? So we're just kind of trying to like microdose little inklings of advice and touch on issues and important things, while also still, staying true to the Gossip Girl nature and, the oblivion of the rich.
As someone who is a fan of the original series, do you get excited about the little connections that pop up between the original and this one? Do they get pointed out to you ahead of time, or do you just get to like stumble across them in a script when you get them?
I just stumble and I get, oh my goodness, I cannot wait for the 4th episode to come out, because there is a huge reference to the old show that I think everybody's gonna love. So I'm excited to see what everybody thinks about that. I'm not really on Twitter, but I will be on Twitter for that. There's definitely little dosages and little little Easter eggs for the eagle-eyed Gossip Girl fans out there.
Yeah, I love that moment in that episode because I was like, oh, okay, so they're going there.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the last thing I want to ask you then is, do you feel like you are prepared for everything the show is going to bring for you?
No.
And I mean, do you feel like you have any sort of like a real grasp on what that's going to do?
No. I'm not ready for it. I don't think it's something that you can prepare for. In fact, I think I'm avoiding feeling anything about it. Because like I said earlier, I am somebody who really, really values my privacy and my personal space and the relationships and people that are close to me. And so kind of the fear and the anticipation of losing a tiny chunk of my anonymity is probably thinking about that too much would probably send me over the edge. So we're gonna take it step by step and see where it goes.
Well, I am excited to see where the show goes. I'm having so much fun with it already. And I think this cast is just so interesting. I thought you were just terrific in the show. So
wow.
I'm excited to see more. It's fun. There's some fun characters and storylines, and I like some of the little twists you guys are doing. So
yeah.
I'm a little afraid for a whole season with everybody because I feel like there's no way these characters are coming out of this unscathed. But
I truly don't think anybody's ready. Yeah, nobody's ready. You may think that you are, but there's a lot going on, and it's weird. Like when I got the screener, my best friend Paloma was obviously with me, and so we watched it together. But it was weird because I watched her reaction to the show, and because she didn't really. If you're in it and you do an interview and you kind of read something, you're like, oh, they just exposed the entire storyline. It's because you're like so immersed in it that you can't even think about how people who are reading it are receiving it as. So it's interesting kind of getting an outsider's perspective, and I'm like, oh, so that's what it looks like from out there. Got it.
I think there'll be some fun conversations on Twitter. So
absolutely. Boy, oh boy, I know Paloma's going to be all over it.
Well, thank you for talking to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Christina. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.